it leads me to a question that basically is kind of the title of the podcast is the Running Industry Diversity Coalition. And so Shannon and Martha, you're both involved with this, and I know that folks, this might be just coming onto the radar for a lot of folks, but we want to give it the just hear a little bit about it. How did it come to be? What is it? And honestly, like, why should people be interested?
Who
Yeah,
wants to go?
well, yeah, I can kind of start with what I know of the origin story. I came on a couple months after RIDC got going, but Chris Lampencrow from Gazelle Sports was very personally affected by the death of Ahmaud Arbery, and he started having conversations with his friends within the industry and about what can we do, and just recognizing how white the industry is and how not aware of some of the barriers in running there were. And then Breonna Taylor was murdered, and then we all saw George Floyd being murdered, and then Chris stepped up and was like, we have to take action. And so he started networking, which then led to them contacting Jim Weber, the CEO of Brooks, and he started off in the coalition. And that's during the time that I was transitioning into my role as senior manager of DEI at Brooks. And so, Jim was gracious enough to kind of step aside and allow me to take that seat at the table with the coalition.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, JT. Sorry.
No, I would love to hear from Martha of how HOKA got involved.
Yeah, similar to Shannon, I think, one of the conversations that Chris had early on was with Joy Pointer, CEO of Fleet Feet. And I think through that, there was a lot of conversations around, forming this coalition, who could be involved, being inclusive of retailers, runners, brands as well. So through that conversation, they had asked Wendy Yang, who's the president of HOKA, could HOKA be involved? And then Wendy and I had a conversation about it, and I jumped in at the opportunity. I mean, earlier on, JT, you mentioned about the conversation being about changing the world, like people who are changing the world. Like that is such a big passion of mine. I definitely am one of those people that feel like I can change the world. So jumping at this opportunity, I was like, yeah, let's start with the industry.
Well, what I thought was so interesting about it, and why I wanted the two of you to come on and to give a brand's perspective, is that rarely do you see a movement like this attach itself to multiple brands and multiple things that can move forward. So I was like, something different's going on here, right? We're cutting down a barrier of like, this isn't just about money. This isn't just about selling shoes or apparel or something like that. These brands are getting together because they want to solve a problem, and they're going to put differences aside of who's number one at Fleet Feet on the shelves right now, or whatever it is. And that to me got me excited and powerful. It's like, we have to have this conversation and find out what's going on here, Josh. It's usually like, okay, there's a Black Girls Run, powerful organization. They will typically align themselves with one shoe brand and then just move forward. When I saw RIDC come together with like multiple brands and multiple people that can win, I was like, this is powerful.
Yeah, and JT honestly brought this to my attention, which is something I hadn't heard about. But I'm very curious. Like, as you bring the coalition together and more folks want to be involved, do you have like a kind of a North Star that you're aligning behind and saying like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. This is what success would look like. And maybe it's not defined yet. Maybe it's just like still in the infancy of like forming everything together. But I'm curious, just from both of your perspectives, like what direction are we aligning everybody towards?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
the ultimate goal is really to increase diversity within with representation, and we have like 9 goals underneath that. But it's also tackling systemic racism and the lack of acknowledgement that there is a barrier to entry with running, and it's not as accessible to everyone. It's not just as easy as lacing up and going out of your door. Like, being able to have access to that really is a privilege. So this coalition is forming to provide a number of different resources through education and panels and other sorts of communication to really meet people where they are, to start to have these conversations, but further that conversation into action.
Yeah,
That's
and if I were
fantastic. What do you think,
to,
Shannon? Sorry.
if I were to simplify it, I would say that we are, our goal is to dismantle systemic racism within the running industry. And we define the running industry as all organizations and businesses that make money off of people running. And when we look at, I mean, there's a huge disparity. When we look at, runners in the US, 31% are BIPOC. And that's a decent amount, right? When I look at running, I grew up with, Carl Lewis and FloJo, and like I see Black people are runners, right? Like, so I see running as itself being diverse. But then you compare that to the running industry, and there was a study that was done looking at the 15 top running brands leadership, and less than 1% is BIPOC. So there's a huge disparity about how many BIPOC runners there are, and then when you look in the industry and who's working in the industry, it's majority white.
Yeah.
And so we want to change that. And I want to say that this is a badass group of people that have come together for this coalition, and it may be the most diverse group of people working in the industry right now. So this is a group that is, majority female, majority BIPOC on this team, and you don't see that in the industry at all.